You're listening to the I Have Dreams, Dammit podcast, a podcast about the realities of pursuing dreams. I'm your host, Lisa Murray, and let's get started.
Live from Los Angeles, California, this is the Lisa Murray Show, and with your host, Lisa Murray.
The day I felt like I really started living.
I don't have enough money to start this business.
I'm so tired. I hate it. I'm working all the time.
I'm not inspired when I'm worried about money.
Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all.
I'm so sick of all these positive people talking about dreams. What about money? Like, how am I supposed to get the money?
What it's really about, it's about you pursuing what makes you come alive. It's about continually connecting with that energy and just keep doing that. Keep going towards that. That's what it's about. Just need to give up. There's too many obstacles. I can't take this shit anymore. Ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are built for.
It feels really good to be my own boss.
I have dreams, damn it! Hey guys, this is the last podcast episode of 2019. How are you doing? How are you feeling at the end of the year? Do you get depressed? Or do you get excited about the new year? What happens for you? We're just sort of looking around and trying to, have the examined life and try to figure out like what can we learn from what happened from 2019? Because really, that's to me the gems of it all, is to really pick up those pieces of wisdom that were hard earned in 2019. So, if you're not in the place right now where you're thinking about all this stuff, that's okay. Because, whenever you are thinking about this, even if it's April or mid-June or whatever, it doesn't matter. Transformation is transformation. And, looking back is important. The unexamined life is not worth living, right? So if you want to kind of figure it out as you go along, or maybe you're forced to because stuff isn't really working out, or you're in emotional pain or financial stress or whatever, to be able to look back and think about, okay, what have I done? What are the decisions I've made? And what can I do differently? Or do I just need to stay on the course that I'm on and just keep going? #keep going. I had a bunch of stuff, as I said in the last podcast, all the different things that were going on and feeling very triggered. And I felt kind of like shame come out because it was like, just the having like huge rejection personally and professionally, and having that kind of weird conflict. Also, on top of that, I didn't really understand a lot of the conflict that happened this year. I wasn't like, how sometimes you have conflict with people and then maybe you fall apart or something happens and you go, yeah, I totally saw that. Like I knew that was going to happen. We didn't get along. Or I never really got in with the culture of that job. Like I knew it was going to, even if at the time you were kind of fighting it, some other part of you knew like, yeah, I kind of knew I didn't really fit in there. But it's a whole nother thing when you actually think you do fit in somewhere, or you do think you're doing a good job, or you do think your friendship is okay, and then everything falls apart. To me, that's like so hard because it's like shocking and it's disorienting. That's what it is. It's very disorienting because I feel like I'm pretty aware, and then I'm thinking, wow, I must not be that aware. I do think now, though, when I look at in 2019, but other years as well, but just 2019, the times that I was blocked on things or a relationship sort of dissolved or fell apart or whatever, I really see it now as like, what is it? Man's rejection is God's protection. I really see that right now, because I think we get lost and we get caught up in things. And for me, I like to be loyal. Like I'm loyal to a cause, or I'm loyal to a company, or I'm loyal to a person or a friendship. And sometimes the road is turning and I need to let go sometimes. And I don't. And so something kind of has to happen to shake my hand off of it. And it's just very painful when it's happening. But I need to not be attached in the first place. That's the point. Like I shouldn't get so clung to it that it's too hard for me to let it go when it is time to let it go. And probably the more evolved I get, the more I'll be able to see the subtleties, the little things that are telling me I need to loosen my grip a little bit and let life sort of go wherever. And that has to do with trust. It has to do with letting go of fear, or experiencing fear but still opening your hand anyways. Because, I'm like good at a lot of different things. If you're like me, I'm sure you're like me if you're listening to this. I'm good at a lot of different things. And just because I'm good at things doesn't mean I should do them. And I've always had people pulling me in different directions, like, you're so good at blah, blah, blah. You should do that, And the problem isn't them saying that. The problem is that I get confused because then I think, well, maybe I should do that, And it's, it's taken me a long time. I've been fighting against this, and it's taken me a long time to realize that just because I'm good at something, or if people want me to do something or whatever, that doesn't mean it should be what I do. I know it sounds really obvious, but when you're in it and it is something you slightly enjoy doing, you're like, well, I don't know. I don't mind it, but it's not what really makes me happy. And that's there's kind of a few reasons why the title is I Have Dreams, Damn It. I was in an acting class in Los Angeles, and I was working at Paramount Pictures at the time, which was like really a dream job in the world of jobs. I really enjoyed it. But I wanted to act. I wanted to write. I wanted to direct. I didn't want to be in an office, but that's something I'm good at. Anything to do with in offices, like organizing, working with groups, computers, technology, creativity, organization, whatever. I love all that stuff. But that's not really what makes me happy in my soul. And I've been trying to figure out, most of my adult life, I was trying to figure out how can I do that, but then still do the other. And it's like kind of impossible at some points. There's probably a period of time you can try to do both, but it's like with creativity, a creative job, an entrepreneurial type job, it's like you really have to have flexible schedule. You have to be able to go to an audition or go to a class or whatever. And it's like all over the place. Whereas when you work in an office, it's about people being able to rely on you every day at exactly the same starting time, and like you being there, you being in that desk, you answering those emails, you answering your phone. Like it's really about that, you just showing up and being there every day. And that's really hard to do when you're also trying to develop your artistic voice and also trying to have a career in that where you just have to take, weird acting jobs or show up for auditions or whatever. It's just, they're at odds. And so I've never been able to really figure out how to do that. And I've asked some of my actor friends, like, how were you able to do this? Like, I don't understand. And they're like, some of them told me they would have like waiter jobs, waiter, waitress, whatever. And if there was a conflict, they would try to move the schedule around with other coworkers. Cause in LA, a lot of people are doing the same thing. So, it's, you take care of me this time, I'll take care of you this next time. But also though, they said sometimes I would just have to quit because it was too big of an opportunity and I couldn't let it pass by. So they would just go, yeah, so I just quit. And I'm like, oh, I would never, that goes back to that loyalty thing. I would never want to like just quit a job like that when they were expecting me to show up because that will affect my coworkers. And I usually care about people and I don't want to screw them over like that. So therefore I never go to the audition. Therefore I never, so it doesn't work for me. So I need to figure out something else, or I just need to change that part of myself. But so the point is, it's complicated, number one, but I Have Dreams, Damn It, is sort of like reminding me of that thing that's in me, because I can really get lost. Because I get really into people, I get really into solving problems, and I'm good at stuff, and so I'm like, this is my thing. But I forget what's in my heart and what I really want. And it's okay to get into stuff, and it's okay to even lose myself for a minute, but I just need to keep remembering. Yeah, so it's okay to like get involved in a job and then get really into it and then come back to my dreams, but I need to remember that. And sometimes even when the writing's on the wall, I forget until some part of me screams, I have dreams, damn it, like at me. And I'm like, oh my God, that's right. What am I doing? So just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it. And it doesn't mean it makes you happy or makes you feel fulfilled or pushed or whatever. So just be mindful of that, because if you're not really feeling that happy, sometimes it's because you've just settled for something and you didn't even realize that you were doing that. Another thing I've noticed too, if I'm blocked on something, if something I think I want really, really bad, and I just keep getting blocked on it, when I look back after I get past everything, I feel like every single time that happened, and there's a couple times I haven't fully come to peace with, but the majority of the times when I look back on when that happened in my life, I'm always glad it happened, that I got blocked, because it wasn't what I really wanted, and it wasn't really going to be the thing that I needed it to be or wanted it to be. And I wasn't able to see that in the position I was in initially. So sometimes when we're blocked, it's actually a really good thing. So, it's not always bad. It's not like, oh God, I'm not meant to be this. No, it doesn't mean that. It means sometimes we think it's going to happen in a certain way. Like if we move to a new town and we get this job and we think this job is going to be the reason why all things will start to work out for us. Maybe it's a stepping stone to the next situation, but you needed to get that job to move to the town to have that stepping stone to the better thing. But we are afraid. We're afraid we won't be able to pay our bills, and we're afraid of like really real stuff, and it makes sense. And you're like, gosh, I moved out to this town and what am I doing? But we just have to keep remembering to trust and trust something bigger, trust the universe, trust God, trust our highest self, whatever way you want to look at that. But we need to trust that there was something bigger that led us here in the first place. It's not going to lead us astray. If 2019 was a year where you were really pushed down, if a lot of things happened that kind of feels like it pushed you down into the ground, sometimes we need to be pushed down to shoot back up. You almost need, when you're in a swimming pool and you go all the way to the bottom and you kind of like bend your knees and your feet are on the bottom of the pool, and then you push up and you can shoot all the way up to the top. That's sometimes what I need in my life. I need that kind of feeling the bottom underneath my feet so I can push off of it. It's too hard if you're kind of floating in the middle to then get up to the surface, because you're just sort of there, So sometimes being pushed down isn't a bad thing. And also, sometimes when we put ourselves out there and maybe we're not used to doing that, or maybe like in my case, I'm coming back from something. So this 2019 was a year that I like put myself back out into the world, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm here. And I hadn't been out in the world like publicly in any kind of big way since Michael and Derek died. So it's like I put myself out there, and so I'm more of a target, and I just have to remember that as well, that people like to cut things down. People like to be critical. I don't know why that is. I mean, we can, there's all kinds of reasons, I guess. People are insecure, they're projecting, they're whatever. But, when you put yourself out into the world with anything, any kind of thing that you do, you're going to be a target for some people. And you just have to know that and just be like, oh, whatever, I don't care. This is important to me. So in the thick of all the pain that I was going through from this whole year of just feeling very unsafe, and it really felt like the whole thing that happened with that client with the videos that they never released, it jeopardized other jobs, and probably even stopped some jobs from happening. So it really messed with my income, and my sense of security and my reputation, because I don't know what this person, maybe they spoke about me. I don't know what happened, but like it was uncomfortable, and I was really like mortified. And then I was already weakened because of what happened with my quote unquote friend. And so I was just feeling very vulnerable and uncomfortable. And I still didn't even really know for sure what exactly even happened. I'm like, what, because I wasn't given any feedback. So I really kind of I got disoriented it sort of feels like you're in a fire, for me, it felt like I was inside of a house that was burning, and I didn't know, where to go. And everything's smoke is thick and the flames are everywhere. And it's like, that's what they say with people who die in fires and stuff, is you just kind of lose your orientation because you can't see anything anymore. You can't see where the window is because the window's black from smoke. You can't see where the door is. So it's all, just disorienting. There's an account that I follow on Instagram called Synchrosoma, and I'll put the link on the show notes on ihavedreamsdammit.com. And this is episode 17. And her name is Melissa Meeder, and she does archetypal somatics and courses. Her website is synchrosoma.com. So Synchrosoma posted that before the wildfire season in Northern California, their rural community had meetings with the former fire chief into how to surviving a fire, which she says ranged from leave if you're told to evacuate, and then also get to the black. Get to the black. I don't know if you ever heard of this before. I hadn't heard of this before. But she was saying that basically the fire chief said, see the fire, but see where the fire has burned and blackened the world and get to the black. Try to stay calm in that moment and try to go to the area where it's black, because where it's black, it's not going to, there's no more fire. It's already burned everything down. And so look for where the flames are low enough where you can jump over them and get to the black part, because that's where you're going to be safe. And so she was saying that here's how you can get to the black in your life. Turn your face to your fiery, painful past rather than tripping in your mind into the future. You can't fix this. It's burnt. Look at the burns, the scorched self, the results of trauma, abuse, neglect, or abandonment as witness, the consciousness of your greatest identity. Strategize your entry into this scorched realm. Have the resources of a fire chief, guide, or guidance from deep wisdom of how trials by fire and shadow work in your psyche. Anyway, she goes on and on. Follow your intuition. And, it's like, that really spoke to me because, really, there's so many. Isn't it weird how there's so many things on your path that if you're just paying attention and open to it, they're the piece of information that you needed to make the next move to get out of a situation or something. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm feeling like I'm in this fire. I've had personal stuff going on. I've got professional stuff going on. Plus, it just triggers all levels. And so it is sort of like a fire, and it's fight or flight, and I'm getting really freaked out. And then when I thought about looking for the black, like go back into my past, like when have I felt like this before? When have I felt like this before? And I started remembering other times in my life, which in the beginning is, when you're thinking about it, is like, this feels like it's getting worse. I don't even want to think about it. But it helped me. So I thought about it and I thought, I survived that when that happened before, a version of this feeling. And so I kind of moved my consciousness into that place that had already happened, the black, the burned, scorched, past. Because the way she says, it's like, you're starting to think about the future. That's kind of what's happening, is you're just sort of trapped in this fire and you're imagining the future, and it's not going to get you out of there. And so anyways, I started thinking about my stuff and times that it's happened in my past, any kind of remnant of this. It's not an exact situation, but and then that really helped me realize I survived it before, I can survive it again. And also it made me realize this is a theme. There's sort of like a theme of this kind of thing that's happened to me a lot in terms of the feeling, not the behavioral thing on the outside, but the feeling that it evoked in me, that feeling of shame, remember I said I wanted to die, like I felt really uncomfortable. So that whole thing, it was just interesting. So I was like, this is crazy, because I have felt this way before. And then when I started thinking about that and kind of doing the forensics on it, I was like, what is that? And then I started thinking, okay, this must be my fatal flaw. This must be, we all have more than one, and it's a whole lifetime thing and whatever, but this is one of my fatal flaws. What has been a repeating disappointment for you? Something that you have every year when the end of the year comes and you start thinking about the new year, what do you kind of get this weird feeling about? Like, it's like this one item on your goal list that you look at and you just, either you get excited because you're like, yay, I'm going to do it. Or you just start to close yourself off to it because you go, you know what? There's been a lot of years and I've never been able to do it. So what makes me think I can do it now? I can't. So I'm not going to do it. Or you just kind of block it out and you push it away, and it's really not a positive thing. It's actually really, it's loaded with other things. Either it's not time yet for you to achieve that thing, whatever it is, or you just didn't dedicate any time to it. If you're really honest with yourself, did you really dedicate yourself to achieving this goal? And if the answer is no, then okay, now rethink about how you want to set up your goals for 2020 and make sure that you allocate time to these things that are really important to you. Because look, there's this thing on your list from the end of 2018 and it's still there now. And maybe you even had it for years prior. And so this is the chance to go, this needs to be something that I put on the forefront and that I keep on the forefront and I don't let go of, and I keep it going like every day, every week, every month. So it's not like at the end of the year you go, oh gosh, I can't believe another year has gone by and I haven't put any energy into this thing. So if it's on your list, it's there for a reason. It's something that's important to you. And if it's important to you, then you need to make it important in your life, in your daily life, in your monthly, weekly, everything life. Right? Right. So if you still have something on your list from last year and you're looking at it and you're like, I really did invest a lot of time into this. Why hasn't it happened? Okay, don't get depressed yet. Think about it. So number one is it could just be that it's not time for it yet. And I've really noticed this as I've gotten older. Things just seem to have their own time. And there is a way that we can be ready for things when the time opens up. It's like opportunity meets preparedness. You can be prepared, and that's what the work is for you to do and for us to do. But sometimes the timing of something has to do with something bigger than us. And it's sort of like an unknown factor. I mean, has that ever happened to you where you're delayed on something and you start to kind of doubt yourself and you get depressed, and then it happens later and you think, wow, thank God this happened later, because if this would have happened earlier, I would have never met Mary and Mary became my wife, or whatever. And so it's like there's this weird thing going on, the bigger thing, that we just have to let go to that every now and then, more often than not. So that could be one thing. Another thing could be that, and that's what this whole show today is going to be about, is your fatal flaw. And you may not be at this point in your journey, but I am. And so I'm going to share with you something that I've just realized. And due to all of the things that happened in 2019 for me, and it was kind of like a dark and lonely year. I felt very and when I say lonely, some people who were my friend this year might feel like, what the heck? I was right there. Loneliness isn't about whether there's a person there, and even a person that cares. It's about being understood. And I really felt like there was a lot of stuff I was going through that people didn't understand. And even when I tried to explain it, and maybe it has to do with the way I explained it, or maybe I was just meant to go through it alone, but I felt like even explaining it was not working. And it was like, I just felt lonely. I felt like the stuff I was going through was not universally known. It felt very personal. It felt like there was no way for me to even describe it to another person. So it was a lonely year. And so in that darkness and loneliness, something was finally illuminated for me. After all these years of me never being able to get my finger on this, I really was shown something huge in me. And this is why I think it is one of my fatal flaws. And I think that there's other fatal flaws, and life is a journey of winding roads and everything else. So this isn't the end all be all. This isn't like, the grand finale on stage or anything like that, but it is a really big revelation. And I'm going to share with you what I've realized about myself. And I want you to think about if there's anything really big that keeps blocking you, that it's invisible. It's kind of like the elephant in the room, but an invisible elephant in the room. So you feel it. You feel this thing always deterring you, making you go against your dream, making you go against your own happiness or sense of peace. There's something that keeps happening year after year, situation after situation, job after job, dream after dream, relationship after relationship, town after town, like whatever it is, it's always kind of, sometimes it happens right away and sometimes it takes a while, but it always keeps coming around. So whatever that is, that's what we're going to look at. Do you love going to farm stands and buying fresh from the farm produce? Do you have to pull over on road trips to pet a cow? No? Okay, maybe that last part's just me. Regardless, we can all agree on our love for all things agriculture. And how about art? Don't you love watching films about artists, painters, singers, dancers, musicians? Coming in September is the Ag and Art Film Festival in Vacaville, California, and they are open for entries. So if you have a film, a narrative, a documentary, a short, or a feature, If you're a student or if you're a pro, this is your chance to show your film to the world. And by the world, I mean Vacaville, California. But still, it's going to be awesome. Visit agandartfilmfestival.com for more information, and you can submit your film exclusively on filmfreeway.com. Okay, so for those who may not know what I mean by fatal flaw, it goes back to, ancient, whatever, Latin, Greek. But basically, it's a flaw. This is from Wikipedia. It is a flaw which causes an otherwise noble or exceptional character to bring about their own downfall and often their eventual death. That sounds really heavy, and it is really heavy. It's sort of like your self-sabotage situation. So for me, a lot of big things have happened in my life that are really cool, and a lot of people go, wow, that's so cool that happened and that you were there and you did this thing. Like I won this contest with Entertainment Tonight, and I was flown out to LA. It was when I was living in Arizona, and I was flown out to LA for the Emmys, and I got to walk the red carpet, and it was like a week-long thing of the ET camera crews following me around, and we were going to Shrine Auditorium, we were going to all the different parties, and they asked me, who do you want to meet? So I had my list, like Mariska Hargitay was on top, and I got to meet her, and she was everything I ever dreamt she could be. But, I got to meet everybody else and blah, blah, blah. So it was a really great experience. But it was also really weird for me, and I'll kind of explain that later. But so I've had these great experiences, but then it's like I couldn't fully enjoy it because of my fatal flaw. And so sometimes it's not that your fatal flaw won't sabotage the good thing, like straight up. It won't destroy it. I made a video with my friend, and I won the contest. I was the grand prize winner, and I got all this great stuff, but it was like, so I should have been extremely happy and fulfilled and felt good, right? I didn't feel that way. I felt this feeling that feels kind of like panic and dread and I guess I want to say shame or embarrassment. I felt it's so weird, right? It's just a contest on Entertainment Tonight. What is the deal? Calm down. But that is literally how I felt. And then I think about it and I'm like, you know what? Anytime anything kind of big has happened for me, where there's an attention on me, I feel that way. And one variation or the other, but that is the core of what I'm feeling. And I always kind of shrugged it off like, well, maybe I'm just shy, or maybe because I was shy when I was younger, I was very shy. And I do think that's like the core of who I am. I'm really shy. Okay, so I'm just going to dive in because I'm already starting to go into it, and I'm trying to think of like the perfect way to say this, but I don't know. I'm just going to, how I've always been, like, just do it and then somehow we'll clean it up later. Okay, so like I said, as a child, I was really quiet and I was really shy. But as I got older, I got more outgoing, and I really like to be funny with people, and I like to be either funny. I'm a Sagittarius, so I fit that because it's like half clown, half wise person. So it's like I love to be funny, but I also love to be wise. Kind of like a Robin Williams in a sense, not his humor exactly, but But then I also like deeper stuff, and most comedians are like that, anyways. They're really, because they're dealing with the extremities of human experience. And so anyways, I like to be funny, and I like to be, talk about the kind of stuff I talk about in this podcast. I've always been like this. And I think that there's a part of me, it sort of feels like my purpose or my soul or something bigger than me in this lifetime has always been pushing me out. It's almost like my spirit or something bigger in me is a stage mom. And so it's always pushing the shy me out into the public. So even with this podcast, the shy part of me is a little bit mortified every time I post an episode. And if someone says, oh, I listened to your podcast, I get this shot of like terror go through my body. Like, oh my God, they know this stuff about me. Like, it's weird. And yet I know in my soul, it's the right thing to do for me. I know I'm meant to share my experience in this world, especially since everybody died, because I'm meant to share this so that I could probably help somebody else, because that became very clear to me. Before I just did it and I didn't know why I did it. And it was probably the same reason, but I just wasn't conscious of it. And then when everybody died and then my burned out and everything, all my life stopped. And I really had time to evaluate everything. I thought, if I do come back to life, if I survive this, then the only thing I really am going to be truly interested in is making the world a better place, or at least making an attempt to share my experience. Because that's the one thing when I would watch YouTube videos or listen to audiobooks or podcasts, people being honest and sharing their authenticity, even when it was messy or embarrassing, was so healing for me. That it just felt like oxygen. It was the only thing that really felt real and that went in and was like, yes, So I thought, okay, if I ever get in the position, I'm going to be really honest. I'm going to really risk more. Instead of trying to make sure everything looked a certain way or sounded a certain way, I'm really going to just risk being messy and risk it not making sense completely, but maybe the person that needs to hear it, it will make sense for. And just trusting that you're out there, the person that needs to hear what I have to share is out there and will find my stuff, whatever it is. Either it's a film or a video or this podcast. So I've got this thing going on all the time inside of me of this half wanting to be a hermit and half wanting to be out in the world pushing this stuff. And it's almost on the level of like a multiple personality, or they call it dissociative personality disorder. But it's almost like that because I think that had I grown up in a different situation, if my parents maybe would have given me more attention in this type of stuff, because I always knew I wanted to be an entertainer from the time I was like literally in kindergarten or before kindergarten. Even though I was shy, I would kind of come to life around my friends. And you know that Warner Brother frog that would like sing and dance and then someone would come around and it would stop? That was kind of like me. But a lot of entertainers are really shy, Like I think about Michael Jackson or whatever. I don't even know. Are all entertainers outgoing? Because I feel like they're all shy. And I think that's even too much of a dramatic swing the other way. But it's like in real life, the problem is we don't relate. And I'm putting myself in the same room as Michael Jackson. See how I slyly did that? Like, me and Michael Jackson just aren't like the rest of you. No, I'm just saying like, I've never really felt like I've fully related to this world. And I've said that a few times in this podcast, and I've said it a trillion times in my life, but I never really fully, like some people just take stuff for, they just live this life and they just act like it's normal and they go shopping and then they eat apple pie and they buy new shoes. And like everything that I do, I feel like an alien. I'm like, oh, I just bought shoes. I have shoes on my feet. Like it's such a strange thing for me. And I think that I do have enough awareness to know that that's weird, that I even think it's weird. Like, why am I always looking like I am a tourist of this planet, but most of the other people I encounter are completely comfortable? Like, what is that? So I've always had a little bit of that. So that probably doesn't help, and then I'm a middle child, which, Google that, you'll go down the rabbit hole of that stuff. So there's like not really a lot of attention on me. And then, and then just the particulars of my upbringing. So it was sort of like being outgoing and my spirit, all the stuff that my spirit wanted to say, whether it was something funny or something deep, came from a really empowered high level of myself. And so it was like when I was really feeling good, really it felt like my spirit. It felt like the highest level of me, my soul, my spirit, and me in the best case scenario. Okay. And then the other side, the shy part, never really developed because I didn't fully even know how to develop that part of myself. I didn't have a lot of role models of people around me, so I just didn't know. So I would just sort of switch into the outgoing persona of myself, and that's just what I did. And I didn't really, it was survival. And we all do this. We all have our own story. And so that's what I want you to do. As I'm telling you my story, I want you to think about what your story is. Because there's a whole specific thing happening in your life and how you handle things. But anyways, so the shy part of me or whatever, the sensitive part of me is also the part of me that is me. It's the core of me. It's just raw. And I hadn't really developed a lot of personality characteristics that I should have, So I would excel at human interaction or systematic things in a job or something like that. But then basic stuff like paying my bills or making sure my car insurance was paid or just taking care of myself, I was really bad at. And so it was weird. People are like, okay, you totally excel in one way, and then other ways you're completely like screwed up. What's up? And that's kind of how I am. That's my whole thing. But then there's the part of me that, the shy part of me or whatever, it needs to be developed in this lifetime because I can't be split off like that. I have to have both things. So what do? Do I take the part of me that's really good at stuff and good at marketing and putting myself out there and all that stuff? Do I take that part of me and put reins on it and pull it back and restrict it to get it so that it stays in unison with the shy part of myself? Or do I push the shy part of myself out of its shell and just keep pushing it so it catches up with the other part? Like, I've never really totally figured out how to deal with that. That's probably where I spend a lot of my thought process on, if I'm not thinking about why I'm here in the first place. But so I've kind of created these situations where I try to check in with the shy part of myself. But anyways, so with these situations, and if you heard episode number 16, which I just posted last week, if you heard what I was saying when I went through the whole year, I had these really big things happen, right? So I had the film festival, Ag and Art Film Festival, which turned out to be really good. And then I had my own film that screened. And then I had this podcast that started. And those are all really positive things. And I guarantee you 99.999% of it was coming from my spirit, the confident part of me that puts big things out there. That's what it does. It's good at that. I've gotten good at that. And I think I was always kind of good at it. Maybe I was a little bit more reckless and weird when I was younger, but it's always been this thing that I've done. So the down things that happened, mostly I'm talking more about like, well, it was both personal and career, but the things that happened that made me feel exposed and judged was really profound and big this year, because the year that, and I mean, it was a little bit over a year, but the time period that Derek died and Michael died and everything like that happened and I was burning out, it was also public. It was very public because I had never really been on Facebook too much before. And all of Derek's family and friends were on Facebook. So I was posting on Facebook all of a sudden. I was usually on Twitter or something else. And all of a sudden I was on Facebook and I was very public with my grief and what was going on with me. And now I look back sometimes and I get a little bit embarrassed, like, oh, I can't believe I did that. But then I kind of think, well, whatever. I was being human, I was a human being. But I'm pretty private. I'm like a pretty private person. That's the other part of the shy part of me, is I'm actually really private, really private. Like, I just don't like the average person having a say on something that they don't know about. Like, you can't possibly know about the intricacies of why Derek's death is so traumatic for me. I can barely understand it, and I live it and think about it and journal about it and talk about it. But I know that, it was traumatic and it was horrible above and beyond the fact that he was an incredible human being. There was a lot of layers to it. So I am very private too. So anyways, but during that time when Derek died and Michael died, it was sort of like the pain of loss and the pain of the grief and the sorrow and everything sort of numbed me out to that other stuff. Like, I could care less. I was just in it. But now, now 2019, I'm more aware now. And I'm more like the Novocaine of pain, of the initial pain of everything has worn off. And so I'm much more sensitive now than I was during that time, which means that's what I mean when I say this is one of the worst years of my life. Obviously, I've had way worse things happen before, but this was the worst, one of the worst, because I'm trying to move on now. And I'm trying, not move on, but I'm trying to actually do something. I'm trying to create this life post the apocalypse. And I feel like I'm failing. And I feel like I'm not doing the right stuff. And I'm feeling publicly shamed and embarrassed and uncomfortable with, I know everyone knows that I've faltered before because of all the stuff that happened. And now I feel like people are judging me and they're looking at me and they're like, oh, you're not really that great, and I'm probably not really that great because I'm actually trying to incorporate the shy part of myself more now. And instead of it being just this shiny, great thing that I do out in the world. I want to make sure I incorporate the deepest part of me, because that's the part of me that has vulnerability. And the spirit part of me is really great and can make great things happen, but it's not vulnerable. And that's why the shy part of me is so vital, because it's like me, it's the humanity part of me. And that's the part that people really connect with. Because who cares if a person's talking about all these great things that they can do? You don't connect with that. You connect with the pain and what's relatable. Not just the pain, but just the vulnerability. And that's not always pain. And this brings me to Brene Brown, which her whole work is all about vulnerability. And I'm just scratching the surface, and I barely even can say that. But someone specifically told me, and I don't remember who it is. So if you're the person and you're listening to this, please tell me, send me an email, text me, whatever. But someone specifically told me in the last maybe 2 years, have you ever heard of Brene Brown? And I was like, well, I've heard her name. And they said, you should check out her work. So that was the seed that was planted. And then just in the last couple weeks, with all the revelations that I'm having, Brene Brown keeps coming up. So I finally got her book, and I'm really starting to look into her work, and I'm blown away at how much I needed what she is, and she's a researcher and a speaker and all this other stuff. So let me just look up her the book title that I got on my Kindle audiobook. Sorry, I got audiobook. Dare to Lead. That's the one I'm looking at, because there was some stuff that came up in terms of like being a leader. That's another part of it. It's not just about putting myself out there, but it's also about leading groups of people. And I think I'm like a natural leader, but I don't step into that. And that goes back to the shy part of myself that's uncomfortable with owning power. There's a division between being vulnerable and authentic in me and being a person that gets shit done out in the world. To me, I think those are two different things, whether I'm aware of it or not. And it's messing me up, because to be a good leader, you have to be able to be in touch with your authenticity and your vulnerability. And also, I was able to create all these great things in my life, but then I had no connection to it because I didn't have the part of me that is me, which is the vulnerability, which is the shy part. So if I'm out there making these big moves and making all this great stuff happen, but I don't bring along really the core of who I am, then when I achieve it, I just kind of go, oh, okay, whatever. I have no real connection to it. Whereas when I'm able to nail something for someone, like a project or something, and I know I put a little bit of my heart in there and I feel really vulnerable, and maybe I feel a little bit nervous if they're going to like it or not like it or whatever, and then they like it. I mean, I weep. I'm so happy when someone's like, oh, I love this. I weep, like I cry and I sob. But if tears of gratitude that I'm in that situation, that I was able to deliver on something that matched with what their expectations or needs were, I feel so completely fulfilled by that. But then the opposite has to be true then. If I'm going to be able to be in a position to feel that sense of gratitude from me being vulnerable, then I also have to be willing to embrace the thing that I cannot embrace, but I'm learning to, which is disappointment, failure, not nailing it, having them get back to me and say, I mean, it's not really what we had in mind, but okay. I mean, no one's ever really said that in that way, but any slight thing, if they go, can you change? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like mortified, it's too much. It's too much for as bold as I am. It's got to be more in balance. Like I either need to be less bold or I need to be less sensitive, one or the other, because it's killing me the way it is. Knowing that a lot of people knew about the video project that worked with me and then also worked with the client, and we have mutual associates, was enough to send me in a state of like whatever that horrible feeling is that I talked about when I was on the red carpet at the Emmys. It was a similar feeling, just different intensity, but same kind of place. So I'm having a hard time explaining this fatal flaw. Maybe I'm still excavating it because I understand it conceptually, and in my body, I feel a sense of like, oh my God, and I know I get it. But once I start to try to explain it, I can tell it sort of disintegrates and becomes sort of a slew of words and stuff. So hopefully somebody listening to this is getting something out of this. But I think over the course of the next few podcast episodes, hopefully we'll be able to clarify a little bit about this, but basically there's something about this vulnerability and the fact that I never learned how to be, to be powerful in that vulnerability and to look at it like a good thing to be vulnerable. It's good to be vulnerable. And I know a lot of leaders in our country and our world are not thought of that that's a good thing, especially as a female. If you're vulnerable, they're like, oh, okay, sorry that your feelings got hurt. You always have to sort of swing the pendulum the other extreme. What I'm thinking I have to do is realize I have to really embrace the part of me that it's almost like my purpose. It keeps pushing me out. My stage mom, inner stage mom needs to do this. I mean, it's never gone away. And if I try to repress it, I get depressed. I get very sort of dead inside and tired all the time. So if I let it out, it has all these great ideas, but I don't feel like I'm capable of fulfilling what those ideas are sometimes. I feel like I'm like out of my league with this whole thing. I'm like, where is this part of me going? Like, I'm not trying to be dragged out in the middle of a stage every 5 seconds. I feel very uncomfortable. I feel vulnerable. I feel like a target, and it makes me panic. And I feel like recoiling away from all of life. And so I keep swinging from one extreme to the other. Either I'm on stage or I'm a hermit. And it's like when I'm a hermit, there's good parts about being a hermit because I do a lot of my introspection and writing and figuring things out. But then when I'm out on stage, there's a lot of good things because I'm connecting with people and I'm helping people and I'm making them laugh or making them think or both or whatever. So it's not a bad thing. But the downside of being a hermit for too long is that because I do have this yearning to share what I discover with people and to help people in the world, not just myself, but to actually put it out there, especially before I die. I want people to know what this person in this position in this world experienced, thought about, and felt. I don't know why. It's just a burning desire inside of me. It's like a bird that sings a song. This is my song, is to share my story. And so if I don't do that, I actually start to get a destructive feeling in my hermitness. It doesn't feel healthy anymore. It feels like part of it is very healthy and enriching. But then if I'm starting to ignore the call to go out there and share what I've learned, that's when I start to get kind of yucky and I feel gross and I feel depressed and I just start to separate from my spirit and who I am. And then that creates all kinds of problems. On the flip side, if I'm on the stage all the time, if I'm always putting myself out there, and I'm online and I'm doing videos and I'm blogging and I'm always out there, and I'm not checking in with myself, I also start to kind of feel sick inside because I don't feel grounded and I don't feel safe. I feel like I'm too far out there and that I don't have a system of security protecting me and that I could just, be like a tree that just breaks off from a strong wind, and that the roots aren't really holding it in. And so it's a scary, vulnerable feeling in a different kind of way, but it's a yucky kind of, I don't know. I hate that feeling. So when I experience this stuff, I just swing from one extreme to the other, and I'm really trying to be conscious of both and weave in and out of vulnerability and power and vulnerability and vulnerability and power. And if I can just keep that sort of infinity wheel going around, I think that's sort of the healthy way to move forward. So when I feel exposed and I feel uncomfortable, when the stage mom in me has put me center stage, and then the shy part of me wakes up in the middle of the stage in front of potentially thousands of people, I sort of feel like running away. And what I'm learning from facing this fatal flaw in myself is that I don't love myself enough. I don't have my own back. I should love myself more than any other person. And so in those moments when the shy parts of me wakes up and I'm feeling vulnerable, I need to just flood myself with love and protection and not sabotage something that I have set up for myself. Because even though I've separated it in my consciousness to some degree to even call it my stage mom, that's still me. And I have set something up for myself that even though it's high priority or high visibility, it's important. It's an important position to be in, whether I'm on the stage or on a podcast or whatever. I've put myself in this position because it's important. And so even though the part of me that feels vulnerable wants to run away and sort of disassociate myself from that other part, I can't do that. And I shouldn't do that. And I don't want to do that. And I want to merge with myself. I want to have more. I just want to have my back more, because it's like, what the heck? I can't keep doing that to myself. I can't keep going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like if I don't stand behind myself, who will? And even if 1,000 people stood behind me, if I don't stand behind me, I will always feel that division in myself. I'll always feel that I'm not fully there for myself. I'll always feel like there's a part of me that sort of cuts down the stage mom inside of me. Like, oh God, do I really have to have a podcast? Do I really have to share every thought I have? Do I really have to share my feelings with people? I mean, I was just invited to someone's house last week that I really like, lovely person. And we ended up going to her neighbors who's also more lovely people. And I shared myself with them. And when I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about, I was reprimanding myself. Like, why did I share so much of myself? I hate when I do that. And it's like, it's gone to the point now where I'm at a stalemate with myself. And it's like, I used to be able to go like a few weeks or months or whatever by being one or the other, by either being quiet and introverted or outgoing. But now it's happening at the same time. So it's like, as I go out, I want to be quiet, but I also want to talk. And then if I talk and express myself and I'm vulnerable, that part of me instantly feels like absolute shit. And I feel like under threat, like it doesn't feel comfortable for me. I feel like a target. But then if I don't say anything all night long, I force myself not to say anything. I'm pissed at myself because I think, who have I become? Why have I let other people's, my fear of what other people could or couldn't do, why have I let that stop me from sharing my spirit with the world? After Derek and Michael died, that's the thing I used to say. If I could live past this, I'm sharing my truth because I'm not always going to be here. And so when I die, at least people will have known me. People will say, I know who she was to me. I know where she stood on things. And even if it was messy, and even if sometimes I got crazy or mad or spoke out of turn or whatever, at least I'm being me. And it's very hard for me to do that because the essence of who I am is not really that. I'm actually more of like a shy, careful person, but I've got this literally other side of the world kind of personality, also in the same consciousness of me that is so bold and just like out there. And so I have to reconcile between the two parts of myself. And the fact that I've never fully reconciled those two parts of myself, those two master parts of myself that the world knows as being me and what I know in my consciousness of being me, it will always sabotage anything that I set up for myself. Anything good that I create, it will sabotage. And if it doesn't sabotage it, if it is perfectly, executed, then I will not be happy. I will not experience any sense of fulfillment or peace from anything that I create. So do you see how that's like a living hell at this point? That's crazy. It's like I have like a double-edged sword going on here. I can never actually fully be happy. So even though I know I have what it takes to manifest really great big things that are really helpful or great or whatever, the other part of me will find subconscious ways to destroy it sometimes. It doesn't always happen, but I'm just saying. And then the other way is I can have these really great achievements that other people look at me and go, wow, I mean, look at all this stuff you've done. Look at this great thing you created. Look at this, and that. But then I'm like, I feel like absolute shit about it. And then I feel guilty about that because I'm thinking, well, then why am I creating anything if at the end of the day, I don't feel good about it? So I've had to flip the script on this whole thing. And whatever my normal mode of operations has been since I've been on this planet as this person has got to stop. This has all got to stop and it's got to change right now. And I am going into 2020 consciously looking at this. And I'm going to spend the year looking at this fatal flaw in myself and being open to what will heal that and what will make it a harmonious relationship inside of myself between these different parts of myself that are both equally powerful but totally different. Because I need to have peace in this life with both sides being full expressions of themselves. So the part of me that's shy needs to be fully able to be shy and be a hermit and be sensitive. I need to have that full expression of that and nothing, damp or down about it. And then the part of me that's bold and that wants to be out there and sharing myself with everybody also needs to be uninhibited and free and whatever. But know that the part of me that's shy will stand behind it and say, don't worry, I've got your back. We're in this together. So this is where I'm working on. And this is a huge revelation for me because this year, even in the good things that happened, I still kind of had this little bit of this horrible feeling inside. And that's what made me start to unravel this and go, what exactly is in this knot of emotions? And so it was like this tangled yarn. And I just started to undo it. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I can't be happy even when I win. I can't win for losing. I can't, no matter what I do, I'm never going to fully be happy ever, unless I can figure out how to have these two sides of me work together. So I would say that's a pretty big revelation. So Brene Brown's work on vulnerability has really touched me and really kind of lit me up and made me think like, this is connected to this. This has to do with the way that I lead, the way that I'm bold, and the way that I am also sensitive. And how do I reconcile both of those parts together? I mean, I'm highly sensitive. I'm not just a little bit. If you know me, I'm very sensitive to energies, to criticism, to everything. I'm very sensitive. So I always admire people who can handle criticism really well. They're like, oh, well, okay, so that's what you think. And you're like, oh, I have so much respect for it. Like I'm like, in awe of people who can keep going forward and not being a brute, but just being themselves and just seeing other people's opinions as that's what it is. It's like, what is it? Your opinion of me is none of my business. Like that, I've always thought stuff like that was so amazing. So I thought, how do you get to that point? But anyways, and then there's other part of me that's like very outgoing and out there. So it's just interesting to me that that's what that is. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about, before we end today, let's see, I'm sorry, let me find this. Okay, so it's interesting because in the hero's journey, so we bring it back to that, you go through all these different things, this ordeal, basically. You're leaving your normal world, you're you go through this ordeal, and then you come back, and then you have a resurrection, you have the elixir. Well, the elixir only works for other people who have been through this or who are going through this. If a person has not faced their own sort of death on a journey like this, and it's not just a physical death, it's a spiritual death, a death of ego, death of self, whatever. If a person hasn't gone through that on their own, you can have a barrel of elixir and it won't help them because they haven't been through it. And so if you're listening to this, I'm not saying that if it doesn't mean anything to you, you haven't been through anything, but perhaps this is more for someone who's actually going through all this stuff and is really kind of in the thick of it. And it's weird because with the road back, there's two kind of resurrections that happen in the whole journey, hero's journey. Because there's the road back starts and there's the ordeal. And it's like in that, it seems like there's a life or death situation. But then there's sort of like this victory. And so it seems like everything's okay. Think about movies. Think about every movie, like in Wizard of Oz, when she gets the witch's broomstick. And so then she's able to get inside of Oz. But then she finds out that the Wizard of Oz is really just a little man, talking through this magnifying glass thing. And so it's sort of like you do accomplish something and something does move forward, but there's a new revelation about your journey. And it's a weakness, really. You're seeing something that is a weakness to the situation that really kind of ultimately threatens everything. And so what I had thought were some breakthroughs this year were, in a sense, but then there was always this underlying bigger thing going on that was sort of revealed itself more, which is what this resurrection is about a little bit more. And I'm going to get more into explaining this more, in the coming weeks with the subsequent episodes. But this is hopefully sort of setting the stage for you so you kind of understand what the gist of some of these big revelations are for me. But definitely there's this break between, who I really am, my sensitivities and everything, and who my soul wants me to be. And I need to reconcile that. I need to get those two so that they support each other as one cohesive consciousness that may have two different sides to it, but they need to come together a little bit more so that I'm not destroying what I create or not feeling fulfillment from what I create. So that's what I'm learning. But now that I've recorded this episode, I realize it's going to have to take like a while for me to fully explain it. And I might just have to explain it over the year here and there as the pieces fall into place. And that's okay. I'm not in a hurry because I know what I feel. And I hope that me explaining what I've been able to explain here today is touching somebody somewhere and making sense somewhere, because it's like if we're not happy in ourselves, and everything begins and ends with us. So if we're not happy, there's something in us that's not completely, either being listened to or honored or something. So that's the whole thing. So I'm interested to hear what, if anything comes up for you. And if you're the type that wants to share, like if you have an inner stage mom like I do, then send me an email. You can actually record a voice memo if you like talking better than writing. You can record a voice memo, but also if you want me to use it, if you want me to use it on the show, then record a voice memo on your phone, or you can email it to ihavedreamsdammit@gmail.com. Or you can just send me an email. And you can also go to ihavedreamsdammit.com for show notes and for signing up for the email list and all that other stuff. So thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being with me in 2019. I look forward to more breakthroughs with you in 2020. I just sense it's really going to be a year of like pushing forward and not so much accomplishing things. It's not even whether you do or you don't, or I do or I don't, isn't even my emphasis. It's more about really just moving the whole needle forward, like really pushing forward and making progress, because that's more of what I'm interested in right now than any other time, I think. Maybe not, but I think so. All right. I will see you guys in the next show, and thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.